on our campus. And those students who take English 100 on adjunct natural resources, think about which topic that you like to work on. You're going to be working in groups. Another one about are we equal before the law? Another one about student conversations, and another one about wrong kind of teacher. Now, who are you working with, Lai? Michael? What would you like to work on?
I don't know. You can pick.
Since you want to be a topic, then you should do that.
Well, I think you guys will like this. Okay? Why don't you work on this topic? Are we equal before the law? Okay? Now, you guys will probably like something that has to do with conversation. Right? So I can talk a lot.
I do not.
And you can talk all you want today. And protecting natural resources. No? I think
Yes.
the wrong kind of teacher? The wrong kind of teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe 3 of you can work together.
It was last week.
That is like, yeah, I like that.
You really know this.
First of all, remember the underlining strategy we talked about last week? How you don't want to over-underline or over-highlight or over-circle or whatever, right? So underline few words from the writing prompts. Tell us what those are and tell us why you've chosen those words, okay? And I'm going to give you about 2-3 minutes to do this. And read the prompts as many times as you need to, okay? I'll be right back.
Okay, I don't think it's right.
Okay, take the poll for next generation.
Sometimes. There's like a roof mirror, we have to talk about conversations. Yeah?
Yeah.
You could get a little more perspective.
Now there are the writing prompts that we've actually used in the past. So, how do you feel about them?
They're really random.
Random in what sense?
Like, they're kind of weird topics to like, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
But your degree depends on those topics. Okay, who'd like to go first? Give us the underlined words and tell us why you underlined them.
okay.
First of all, do you guys agree? I mean, would you allow the school to eavesdrop on your student
No.
conversation?
Wait, is there eavesdropping? Do we know?
Do we know if they're eavesdropping?
Well, we don't know. They're gonna send out some spies, you know, and
Oh.
just so that right.
We don't know.
As a
I
survey.
don't think it'll work though.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later. So, what are the key words that you've underlined?
Write an essay in which you describe, that's what we underline. The topic, students.
Okay. How many words are
No,
you underlining?
we underlined describe in conversations.
Well, I'm going to read it now. Oh, you only wanted me to read the questions? I read everything.
Okay. So, what are the 3 words that you underlined?
For the first one, we underline describe and conversations. And for the second one, underline clear examples.
Clear examples. Okay. And your first one was describe.
Conversations.
Describe conversations. And tell us why you did that. Who still remembers the 3 questions that I talked about? What are the 3 questions you're going to take into the room? What is what?
Purpose.
What is my mission?
Oh, that one.
What am I trying to argue? What am I trying to argue, or what am I arguing about? Or 3, what examples? Am I going to use? So when you're underlining, remember you're only going to take your pencil and these 3 questions in your mind, right? So you walk into the room, you read the writing prompts, and when you're underlining, you should be thinking about these 3 questions. Okay, what about Lai and Marco? You remember these 3 questions when you walk into the exam. Okay.
Law is the protector of the weak, said by Frederick Schiller. It has been said that justice is blind, that the law treats everyone as equals, whether rich or poor, black or white, young or old.
So tell me your underline words. And tell us
But
why.
didn't it say from the meeting and your own experience? So can you talk about your own experience?
Does it say?
Yeah, it says.
Okay, then you should. Yeah,
Examples
then
from
you
the
can
meeting and
include
your
both.
own experience.
You're right.
Oh, you want our words now?
Yes.
Oh,
Tell us what you
like
want.
American legal system, can we count as one or?
American legal system?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, and tool and manipulate. Manipulate, basically.
Are you for or against? Do you
For or
believe?
against the quote.
For.
You agree? Okay, then you might want to like write yourself a note about I agree or whatever, right? I mean, if you don't find the exact words that you're looking for in the writing prompt, you can always add in a word to help you remember these 3 questions. Okay? How about your group? Okay, what are your words?
Well, our words are identify, teaching style, and doesn't help you learn. And some examples we might use are brilliant but disorganized teachers and teachers who just read the textbook to the class.
Okay, I like the fact that you told give yourself a reminder as to the need to identify the type of teacher that doesn't work for you, right? But how about just underlining that type? Okay, which type would not work for you as a group? I think you give me 2 types.
Yeah.
Okay, what are those 2 types?
Brilliant but disorganized.
Okay, underline that
Yeah, and teachers who just read the textbook to class.
and underline that. And that will help you remember what? Your mission. And that will help you remember that is what you're trying to argue about, right? So what about in terms of examples? What kind of words would you remember, help you remember to write?
I've always said like we would talk about like their teaching styles and like the type of styles that don't help us learn anything, so we can like name what they do that doesn't help us learn.
Okay, all right. Okay, what you need to do as a group then, to come up with a thesis statement. And then, there you go. And how would we start the thesis statement? Those of you who were here last week should know this. How do we start a thesis statement? Does it have to be fancy? Do we need like fancy leading sentences? No. If you can, why not, you know? It's better to have it than not. But don't fuss about it. You know, if you cannot quickly come up with beautiful leading sentences and forget it. What's most important here and what's most crucial is that you have a sound thesis statement. Okay? And how would you start? How would you go about coming up with a good thesis statement? Tell us where you stand. Do you agree or not agree with the writing prompt?
I disagree that competition don't get improvement the level or quality of learning on campus.
Exactly. So what has she done? She started with I either agree or disagree, and you can just practically use the same language of the writing prompt, right? That should be easy enough. And then are you done with that? What are the 2 components of a good thesis? You're going to state your the problem and what? Rationale, right? So because, you should have a because segment to it too, right? Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. Give me at least 2 or 3 sentences, a thesis statement.
You said you agree, right? Be sure to keep in mind your plans because we have to support when we tell them.
Is reading the textbook. It's simply reading the textbook and then the topic.
Kind of.
It's okay.
That's okay with it?
Yeah. Super cool.
What is your thesis?
This is kind of hard to find out.
I agree, so you do agree?
Yeah, that's what.
It makes it
Not really.
difficult.
Did you say how like even as you're walking, walking from another class, if you listen to someone's conversation, like when you say I've listened to someone's conversation.
Because I do agree with you, because it regulates the power and control we have on employment in society by doing what? Sort of like, you know, remember like by maybe Feds regulating the interest rates, right? Or what about taxation, right? Tax is law, right? Because of the tax system, it does balance the
Yeah.
power
There's a
problems
ability
on a social economic scale, right? So instead of society, society is a big word. I would always go with economy and just be a little more specific as to what type of laws you're talking about.
When they are not,
Because tax is law,
when it is
right?
not thoroughly
And
explained.
another thing that I just mentioned, what did I just mention? Like that's interest rate, right? So why don't you try to have those two components in
That
there?
I encourage students to
Incentivize taxes.
I disagree that student conversations are a good indication of the
And if
level or quality of learning on campus, because living on campus, I know that on our free time, the last thing we want to talk about is school. What?
That's how you feel, because you're tired today. But
No, but it's true. I live on campus, and you know, none of my roommates. We don't talk about classes and stuff like on a regular basis. We talk about like, you know, if she bumped into any cute boys, or if you know she wants to go to the mall, or she likes her
okay,
outfit.
you're ready. Okay. There's stimulation. Okay.
I disagree that student conversations are a good indication of the level or quality of learning on campus, because living on campus, I know that on our free time, the last thing we want to talk about is school.
How do you guys feel about that? Do we have the two components of a thesis? Did they state the problem? Do we know where they stand as to whether they agree or disagree? Okay, what about their rationale? How about add one more sentence and say, instead, you know, students on the campus environment, students are more likely to talk about
Personal.
blah, 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 okay?
Wait, where do we put that at the very end?
Yeah, you can just start a new sentence. Give me your last sentence. Read that to me.
It's all one sentence.
Okay, then read it again. Cool. And instead, comma, we rather talk about what and what and what, and these topics are non-relevant to academic issues. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So you need to give your rationale. So, because your first sentence tells me where you stand and that you disagree, right? And your second sentence should be a little more specific as to why, and that's what you're going to work on. Okay? Please come up and present your thesis.
You can present.
Both of you. I need both of you.
Oh,
Okay?
you wouldn't-
Come on.
You gotta say it.
I'm gonna go up there too.
Personal.
Okay, for our thesis, we're gonna put, I agree with Frederick Scheller's that the law is the protector of the weak because it regulates the amount of power the wealthy have on the economy by enforcing taxes and federal interest rates.
Excellent. Yeah? Tell me why you like it. Did they have the two components? Do we know whether they agree or disagree? Did they give us specifics as to you know, why they agree? And what were those two specific elements? Right, it regulates the rich and powerful by doing what to specific things in their thesis. Can you repeat that element?
That was by enforcing taxes and federal interest rates.
See? So you could have a beautiful, like real nice thesis statement even with just one sentence, right? And that's how it works. And you guys agree on it?
Yes.
Okay, now you need to come up with examples now. You know, you talked about feds, right? And you talked about tax, right?
Yeah.
But I think in your essay it talks about how you need to give like your personal experiences and media experiences. So think about, and then now your group. Okay?
In my opinion and experience, teachers whose teaching style is simply reading from the textbook to the class does not help me learn, because it is difficult to retain information when it is not thoroughly explained in simple words or phrases that I and other students can't understand.
So you guys just went with one type now, not two types? Huh? Ah, smart move there. Okay, and you gave us one rationale as to why that type would not work, right? How about coming up with a couple more, or at least one more? Okay?
We didn't do
What are you?
That's true, right? I'm a really
I don't know, just personally, I don't think
You guys are the same.
picked into the grade, like as a leader, I would have disagreed. I would have disagreed.
Are you telling me that you picked the wrong partner here?
I don't know, it's just I think it would be easier to disagree because only the rich and powerful could afford actually like fancy lawyers who actually get them out of trouble, but the weak who are unable to pay for it get like the leftovers.
Then why don't you change it then? Why don't you change the thesis?
I don't know.
Hey, it's easy. You already gave me the thesis that you disagree, right?
I'm like little about taxes,
Yeah, I disagree.
and I passed the AP
Okay,
economics,
let's
so I
change.
can't support that.
Okay, let's change the thesis. And I liked your thesis. You already gave me the thesis. That only the wealthy can have a good legal representation, right? And then come up with 3 media examples of that.
Depending on how they did it.
I'm sure you can think of it. One at least.
Why do we need a teacher?
I thought I was acting.
What's the point of having a teacher who we're
Okay.
paying?
Give us specific topics. They probably talk about their love affairs, right?
Yeah, like your
Or
man.
maybe they talk about their jobs.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, what
right?
we're trying to say here is that if you were to eavesdrop on a conversation, and if they were talking about like school, the only time they would actually be talking about school is if they had been graded. And usually, depending on the grade, they're acting upon emotion. So if they did well, they're excited they did well, and you don't know if they learned anything or not, but they're excited they did well. But if they did bad, they're gonna be sad. So they're, they're getting all mad. And they're saying, and they're just acting upon emotions. So you can't truly tell
Right.
whether or not if they learned anything or not through a conversation.
Okay, so you were saying even though they may talk about academic issues, right?
Yeah.
They're acting out just on their emotions.
Yes.
So that should be a baseless evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, that's good. I think that's good.
Baseless evidence.
Yeah, and in fact, I think a lot of students use websites too, right? If they're really hot about a certain professor or whatever, I think they have like a report with professor.com or something like that.
Oh,
Right?
great. No, what is it called? It's rateyourprofessor.com.
Yeah, so maybe you can use that as a conclusion, instead of eavesdropping, why don't you guys check the websites instead?
That's true.
Right? Okay.
Well, no, but I don't think that's what it is. I think.
So your first evidence will be that in a social mood, the students are more likely to talk about their social events, right? Like their boyfriend or family, or their ties, blah blah blah. And then maybe your next paragraph you can talk about even when they do, they're just acting up on their emotions, right? And then maybe you could have a third paragraph that talk about, if the school is really interested, maybe they should check the websites or whatever,
Oh, okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and your first reason is what?
Reach down with you.
Right, good. Interregulatory. They don't interact.
Which causes them to
Well, you
use
see
the
that
words
bar,
purpose and
Exactly,
object.
beautiful. Okay, and another is?
Another reason some
Somebody's
teachers
Like, you
are
read the
effective
statements,
is
like,
teaching is that a student
this is your
can
evidence,
just
but
easily
like,
go
you need
around
to
and
tell
the test upon their own.
Exactly, and that should do what? That could increase the drop rates,
Yeah.
right? So that could be your third
I know.
evidence paragraph about how it's a disservice to this
Money
academic
for work.
system because if we have enough teachers like
No.
that, the students might not even enroll and maybe drop out.
The law
Okay,
can
and
be
that could
bright.
be your last term, right?
Or the law.
I really want to find
That's a good question.
to just
Because if it's two, it would be like
overthrow them to make it
Yeah.
illegal. To make
It's
it
like-
What do you think,
I don't
Marco?
know,
Would you like to have
Jen,
these two in separate paragraphs or in one paragraph? I would think so too. So you're going to talk about media cases. That's going to be like people like O.J. Simpson, Michael Jackson,
And plus,
and
it's
powerful
not only is it
interest
killing
groups,
the
right? Like
person
tobacco
smoking,
and
but it's
maybe oil
proven that over
industry, right?
40,000 people died just by inhaling. I mean, secondhand.
People
And also
People actually died.
medical industry as well, medicine. They have powerful interest groups. That's why the Americans still have such medical issues. They cannot afford health care. A lot of poor people cannot afford
It's because all the
health care
bad
because
stuff
of the
goes back
interest
into the
groups.
air after it gets out of their lungs, so all the bad stuff.
So it's like
And
how
exactly.